Greetings and that's so close, Phil. Phil, you're scaring me. I'll be honest, you're scaring me. No, that's really, oh my God. Which reminds me, Halloween isn't far away. Hi,
Isn't it marvellous, seriously? It goes a matter of minutes before going live, and then I realised my computer's the one that's not working today. So I'm afraid I'm on a sort of temporary setup here. Hello.
Now, what I love about your dad, Ray, is he makes these sort of Alfred Hitchcock little appearances. It's fabulous.
Oh, yes, he does, doesn't he?
He kind of roams around and say, welcome, everybody. Yeah, it's Wednesday, which means it's halfway through the week. Have we achieved anything? Are we feeling any better? No, I don't know. I've got my list. Let's go straight up to Edinburgh to Veronica Curran, who if I ever meet her, she's just going to punch me straight in the face. No, more Glasgow, wasn't it? Good morning, guys. Yes, Edinburgh is much more cultured than Glasgow, which is a bit more rough, you know. Hi, Veronica.
A bit more fueled by whiskey, allegedly. Which I have to tell you, it sounds right up my street.
It is good. Glasgow's a lot of fun. People always say that the Glasgow's like really rough. It's great fun. Used to go.
I've never been. I do need to add it to the list of places to go, which is considering I've ticked off quite a few places.
Don't rush. Don't rush. You know, it's not like if you got a choice like going to Sorrento or Glasgow, I'd go to Sorrento. I'm not saying you got the choice.
Paul Endicott, my poor computer.
What's happened to it?
I don't know. It's just it's chosen now's the time to do some sort of update or something like that. Meanwhile, I'm acting like a phone stand, but never mind.
It's exciting. Paul Endicott, hola boys. Are you in Spain or are you just pretending to be European, Paul? Emma Webb, friendly faces. Lovely. I'm so sorry. I'm having an emotional and mental wobble at the moment. Come on, Em. Em, come on. Do you want to come and chat to us? And that, I mean, this is why we're here. This is why, apart from just taking the piss out of Phil being merciless towards me, we are actually here to help regarding mental health.
In some strange way, we are more than just human punching bags, which some people do find surprising.
Are you sure? Bloody hell, who knew? Emma Webb, one of our most loyal listeners and viewers, and she says this. I'm just going to pop that. Let me just pop this up on the screen. Our friendly faces. You see, an emotional mental wobble. Any particular reason? Is there any particular reason, Emma? Would love to talk to you. Paul Claridge, halfway up a ladder in East Croydon, giving out free newspapers and being beaten up. That's how he spends his life. Good afternoon, everyone.
Do you notice when you said that, I actually looked up there to see if I could see him. I don't know why, because he's not here. I'm not quite sure why I think if I look halfway up a ladder, I'm moving in Croydon.
You might live with Paul Claridge. How do I know? It's been a good week at East Croydon, says Paul.
Me.
Who can?
Not quite. Oh, dear.
And what have we got here from Veronica? Edinburgh is beautiful as long as you don't look at the whirly disgrace they've installed. Was that the Phil Dave was here placard?
The whirly disgrace.
What's the whirly disgrace?
Now, do you know what? Actually, I know the whirly disgrace is probably some piece of artwork. I've noticed quite a few pieces of artwork going up recently. And I have to tell you, what some people's idea of art is my idea of scrap metal. It's terrible.
It is like, go to your scrap metal dealer. Have you got a 1982 Metro? Yeah, I'll have that. Put it on a plate.
As in like the newspaper?
No, not the newspaper, you fool. Chrissy Richards, love to see you, Phil. Oh, I don't get a bloody mention. Typical. Love to see you, Phil. I would love to see you, Phil. Hi, both. I'm not happy today, so you're not happy today. The lovely Emma Webb's having an emotional wobble. How about Jules Silverman? I bet she's okay. Jules Silverman. Oh, here we go.
We'll bounce back.
Read this out, Philip.
Just taken a lot of abuse outside in the world. And close to home, I will be okay. I have to be. Come on, Emma, you can do it. We know.
Come on, Em,
and stick it to them.
Come on, Em. Don't take any nonsense. People are ghastly. Now, in the digital green room is our guest. We don't. Oh yeah. Now, Phil, while you were away for a couple of weeks, I refurnished the digital green room.
That was nice of you.
It looks.
I wonder
gorgeous.
why we're having so many guests. I've waited 2 weeks to have a chat with you, and no, on the contrary, you've gone and got guests on Monday and Wednesday.
I've changed the caterer. The digital catering is fantastic. Rohan at the moment is having some digital sandwiches. There's digital fresh coffee, digital fresh tea, digital fresh juice. Oh, hang on. What's this?
Is there
This is
digital petty fours or whatever they're called?
No, that's for tea. This is a morning show.
Oh,
Try and keep up. New building for St James Centre. It's a modern swirl. Looks stupid. The thing about Edinburgh, if
sounds
you've never
like a
been,
walnut whip.
it does. Mr. Curdy Wordy. Edinburgh is a beautiful granite, solid, old, traditional city with more bloody steps. God, by the end of my run
There
at
are
the
a lot
Edinburgh
of
Fair,
steps there, from what I
gee
remember.
willikins, my legs, I was fit as a fiddle. Let's bring on our very first guest, because I know he's on a time frame. He's a busy man. Hello,
Well.
Rohan. There he is.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Well, never mind about us. How are you? That's much more to the point.
I'm very well, thank you.
I'm not going to be so rude as to dismiss that. I'm very well, thank you, Rohan, and thank you for asking. I appreciate when guests ask these things.
Shut up! Stop crawling! Stop crawling! You're not going to get anywhere. This is a proper bloke. He's not going to be influenced by your greasy messages. Rohan, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh no, it's an absolute pleasure. You are a mind ambassador. Tell us all about that, please. It's very important.
Yeah, of course. I've had the privilege of working with Mind, the mental health charity, for close to 10 years now.
Wow.
Sunday, I ran my 50th marathon for the charity.
Whoa! Sorry, what you ran your what marathon?
My 50th marathon.
As in 50.
Get out.
Absolutely.
No wonder you work for Mind. How could you? Oh, good gracious me!
50 marathons? Holy God! I can't even eat.
I can't even run a bath.
Well, neither could I when I started, oddly enough, but it just becomes one of those. It's been a wonderful way for me to manage my mental health over the years. But no, the journey with Mind is one where I lived with serious mental illness for a period of time between 2006 and 2015, during which I actually attempted to take my life on multiple occasions. And it was Mind who...
I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but there's one question that we often ask people who openly admit that they have attempted to take their life, which actually does, I believe, I think Russ and I both believe, really does help those who, heaven forbid, are contemplating such things.
Yes.
Are you pleased you didn't succeed, for want of a better term?
I'm absolutely delighted that I didn't succeed. Really, really am. And
there's literally not one person we've ever asked that to, and we ask everyone who has said that they've tried to attempt. There's not one person who says they regret it, that it wasn't successful.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
And actually, Phil, I'd go a step further to say that the work that I've been able to do with Mind as an ambassador over this last 10 years to try and change perceptions, to try and create a society in which we have, a different approach to mental health, it makes that whole journey worthwhile. I regret the difficult moments that my friends and family had around me, but from my own perspective, the fact that lived experience has given me an opportunity to be able to reach out to other men and to women as well, who are going through their own difficult journeys. It means that I don't actually regret the moments, but I am so very grateful that I'm still here to actually help people now choose a different path.
Now, Rohan, we have a golden rule here when we set up MRS, and that's this: it's not the BBC. If you don't want to answer a question, go, Russ,
of course,
mind your own business. It's a conversation. It's not an interrogation. But
and we'll end the interview there. It's fine. I'm joking.
This morning, but this morning, two of our fellow listeners and viewers, regulars, have both said they're struggling today.
Yeah.
And we've tried to create an environment that if you are struggling, you don't have to put on a brave face. Don't go into it if you don't want to. But was there a specific cause for your mental unrest? Was it a
Yeah,
genuine?
so actually, and it's a great question. At the time I didn't know it, because again back then we didn't have the knowledge of mental illness, and the conversations that we do now. But it actually, I went 15 years undiagnosed with bipolar disorder,
Oh my
and
gosh.
for and
Bloody hell, man!
for
15
me,
years.
absolutely.
But did anyone say? Forgive me for stating, as Basil Fawlty would say, the bleeding obvious. But didn't anyone say?
Something is
Didn't
very
anybody say,
wrong.
Rowan? You're clearly not. Something's wrong. Why don't we go to the doctor? Or what?
No two ways about it. And I want to make sure I answer both questions, but I think let's answer this one first. And the the challenge was, guys, that typically you only presented to the doctor. So I only presented to the doctor when I was in a depressive phase.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I was in what you call a manic phase, just out spending money, unable to sleep, um, probably partying more than I should do, sometimes being aggressive. All I looked like to the outside world was someone who was irresponsible, and not mature enough to deal with whatever it may be. And then you'd go from that manic stage into this deep depressive phase. And then what that looked like was someone who couldn't deal with the repercussions of his previous behavior. So you had this kind of like cycle from manic into
Oh,
depressive.
so peaks
And
and troughs.
yeah, exactly that. And the only time I'd actually go to a doctor was in the trough. But the problem was, it was the way that we were with mental health at that point. Even when I went to the doctor, the response was, look, you're a young man, you've got a good education, you've got a good family, you'll be fine, you've got nothing to worry about. But just in case, here are some antidepressants, because
Right.
that was just the only way we dealt with things back then. And of course, what that did was actually playing Russian roulette with my life, because you imagine when you're at the peak and taking antidepressants, it's actually taking you almost um, further out of control, which meant that literally when I came from a manic phase into a depressive phase, I was literally coming off a cliff face.
Ooh,
Um,
horrible,
and and
horrible.
that was a cycle over a period
As
of
well is that when you're on antidepressants, like most medication, a lot of the time what it does is it covers up the issue. It doesn't correct the issue. So
spot on.
to all intents and purposes and at surface value, whatever cliche you want to use, you seem normal because the medication helped you to calm down a bit. But actually the problem is still building up and up and up, so that when you absolutely come crashing, then technically that's not going to help you at all. You're not dealing with the issue at the core.
However, unless you have a serotonin deficit, and if you have a serotonin deficit, taking antidepressants chemically reproduces that, and that's a totally different issue.
And that's it. Look, I'm definitely not going to speak as a medical expert. There is definitely a place for antidepressants, for medication, but actually the key thing for me was that I was on the wrong medication. I was on the wrong medication is what the key thing was for me, because I was on something which was elevating my mood at a time when I needed something to actually moderate it. So I think that's what the key issue was. But I think going back to your initial question, Russ, about listeners who are going through that difficult time, I wish someone could have just told me at that back in those days that actually it's fine to be struggling on a given day.
Yeah.
It is fine to go through those challenges. And actually, I wish someone had been able to give me ideas for tools that could begin to manage those difficult moments, but also just the tools to start a conversation with friends to say, actually, just to say when someone asks you, how are you today? to be able, instead of giving that flippant, yeah, I'm fine, to say, actually, you know what, I am struggling today. And I could really do with chatting, or I could do with, doing anything which allows me, as I say, to step out of that place.
Have we?
It's so important. Go on, Phil. I'm sorry.
Say about the whole "I'm fine" and then just brush it off. I still hear loads of people say that when clearly they're not, and I don't actually understand or even know how we're supposed to break that down. Because there are many occasions when I ask someone who I can really see, primarily sort of for thanks to the work that we do here at MRS, I sort of kind of now know the signs to look out for. I'm sure it's the same with you. Sort of since being involved with Mind, you kind of see signs looking out for when you know someone's not right. You ask them how they are, they just say, "I'm fine." How do we get around that? Because I don't see a way.
Yeah, and it really comes down to persistence, resilience, and also just being a caring friend and a caring bloke. All I can do when someone says that is, look, at any point you need to speak to me, let me know. I'm not what I won't do, because it's counterproductive, is to force the issue. But I can sometimes just be able to turn around to them and say, look, if you are struggling, my ears, my shoulder, they're here and they're your friend. And that's the one thing I can leave that conversation with. What I can't do is turn around to them and say, yeah, I don't believe you that you're struggling, unless it is absolutely abundantly clear, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because the key to MRS and the key to all of this is having the conversation and just opening up that door.
Yeah.
Because because what we've found with our hundreds and hundreds of guests that we've had on is a feeling of isolation, that they're the only person going through this on the planet and nobody else will understand. Well, millions of people are going through this, and people do understand. And week by week, month by month, more and more people are there to be. It's not a question of being sympathetic. It's not like, oh, poor old you. It's like being practical and letting that person know they are not on their own. It's
and I think
so important.
This is where I love the Every Mind Matters campaign. I think we all know that there's certainly been an amplification of noise around mental health during the pandemic. And that's a great thing, because people are becoming more aware and it's breaking down barriers.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, what we've not had are tools and resources.
Correct.
And Every Mind Matters is the simplest tool, simplest resource. And I always liken it. One of the challenges that we've had in the pandemic is, especially when we were sat at home all day, it's when we were locked down, it was, how do you create boundaries between your work life, your home life? How do you stop being switched on all day?
Rowan, if you find an answer, could you let me know, please, immediately? Because I don't know what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. But for me, it was it really has been around. I think one of the things that we do, and blokes do it, women do it, but certainly I think blokes, we've all been prone to doing it for the entire history of mankind. But one of the things that we do is we worry about tomorrow, we're anxious about tomorrow, but we're concerned about the things we've done today. So it's led to this world where we're constantly creating a state of anxiety, because I'm worrying about what I've got to do tomorrow.
Yep.
And I'm also worried about the workload that I've had today. And when I think of Every Mind Matters and my own personal mental health plan, it's always about doing something which allows me to live in the moment. And for me, it just happens to be, a lot of the time, it's running, because running's the one time where I just totally clear my head. I rest, I rest my head from that anxiety about today and tomorrow, and I'm just living in that time.
Rowan, can I act as devil's advocate? There might
Yeah,
be people
sure.
watching and listening, and hello to everybody on Deluxe Radio. Something like 42,000 of you. Hi, everybody on Deluxe and Radio Waves. Thanks for joining us here. Thanks for having us. Some people might say, Rowan, you're actually physically running away from your problems. Is there, and I'm not saying you're doing that, but there might be people say, yeah, sure, he loves running because he's running away from his problems.
No, great question. So let me imagine that I'm cooking. Okay. Cooking's one of the other things I do, because again, when I'm cooking, I've stopped worrying about what happened at work today, and I'm not worrying about tomorrow. I'm just in that moment. I'm just having fun with the things I'm doing. So if we think about our body, the way we're meant to treat our body. We're meant to take our fruit and veg. We're meant to eat healthy. We're meant to make sure we get rest, hence why we go to sleep. And it's the same with our mind. The reality is, if we are constantly in this flux of anxiety, or we're constantly forcing our mind to think about things, our mind never rests, which means it will never have the capacity to process the challenges we have. When I decide to read a book, listen to music, go for a run, cook, as I say, live in the moment. So clear my mind from the things that are happening around it. I'm actually resting my mind to give it the capacity to deal with what happens on the day to day. Now, I think what's really important to say, guys, is none of this is going to stop me from being one of the 1 in 4, 1 in 5, depending on which statistic you listen to, people who will live with a mental health condition at any point in time during the year. Just in the same way that eating my oranges, my apples, my fruit and veg isn't going to stop me coming down with a cold or something more serious at some point. However, what it is going to do is give me much stronger tools to deal with the challenges that I do face if that happens.
Now,
I'm strengthening my mental resilience, basically.
You've mentioned the word tools quite a few times throughout.
Sure.
And I just wonder, sort of, what do tools... I've got to think very carefully how I phrase this.
Yeah. I'm waiting.
For want of a better term, what do tools look like to you? And don't say Russ and I.
No. So what is my toolkit? Absolutely right. My toolkit is sure. It might be going for a run one week. It might be cooking one week. It might be time spent with my wife. It's building up.
Bit worried she comes in at number 3.
No, she's number 1, I promise. But it's
nicely recovered, Rowan.
One of those my toolkit are the activities which allow me to step away from the speed of life, the anxiety of life, and just to rest my mind and actually be at peace with myself and live in the moment, as I said. Not live in tomorrow, not live in yesterday, but live in the actual moment that I'm living in. And I think your toolkit is anything that allows you to do that. Your toolkit are the things which gives your mind rest and gives your mind space.
I'm going to clean up what I'm going to say. It was somebody told me this about 25 years ago. And I will clean it up, even by my standards. If you stand with one foot in the past and one foot in the future, all you do is CRAP on the present, because you're not dealing with it.
Yeah.
And the thing that Phil and I often
you strip away the joy of life if you don't live in the present.
Totally. There's nothing you can do about the past. Now, I know sometimes 3, 4 in the morning I go through, why the bloody hell did I do this and this? Nothing I can do. It's done. It's over. I can't jump in the TARDIS and undo it. Forget it. Done. Over. Done with. The future is the future, but you've got to deal with the day. Absolutely right. And although running would kill Phil and I, two less athletic people in your life. However,
cook the challenges away instead.
I love the cooking thing. Totally. I totally zone out. Although you got to be in the right frame of mind. I don't mean depressed or anything, but if you're like thinking about other stuff,
Agreed.
it won't come out as good, will it?
Agreed.
It's true about cooking, isn't it? You got to be in the zone. Going for a walk, I take the dog out. We go for 2-3 miles every single day. I'm listening to my audio books. I'm lost. It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, and suddenly during that period of time, you've stopped worrying about today, about yesterday and tomorrow. You're just in that moment.
And you also, it's not just about, by the way, you won't have the mental capacity to deal with the challenges. Sometimes if you're doing because I write books as well, but sometimes when you've got issues that you want to think about, when you're relaxed and not gnawing at it, the solution comes. I find that a lot.
Yeah,
the solution
absolutely.
just pops into your head out of nowhere because you've cleared your mind.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And going back to the Every Mind Matters, and the mind, the toolkit, which is called My Mind Plan. So what I'd say is, anyone who wants to search Every Mind Matters, and it's a new campaign. And what it will allow you to do, you get to answer 4 or 5 questions, and it will actually help you to develop. It will come up with your tips for that toolkit that we spoke about. So Every Mind Matters, and basically it will give you ideas for that toolkit, whether it's walking, whether it's eating better, whether it's reading, or that you need more rest, or you need less rest. It begins to formulate what are those things that you can do to feed and boost your well-being. And as we said, the one thing I think I'd always say to everyone, none of this guarantees that we're not going to have challenges, but what it is giving ourselves a better chance to overcome those challenges that we naturally face.
Bless you for that. What we have to also do is a real shift of our mind. We live in a society which wants instant gratification. Every news thing is some stupid soundbite where you're trying to compress a very complex issue into like 45 seconds. It's impossible. It's nonsense. Everybody thinks, oh, it doesn't work like that. And we have to readjust. We've got to recalibrate, because you're only going to lead to disappointment. Oh, I went for a walk today and I'm still depressed. Well, yes, it's not magic.
Yeah.
It's not Harry Potter. It's real life.
Yeah, and so true. We see that, in the workplace. What I do for Mind as an ambassador is voluntary and something that I love. But in the workplace, I'm an HR director. In my home life, in everything we do, you've got to build foundations. As a runner, I certainly didn't lace up my boots at 20 stone, which is what I once was.
Get out.
And suddenly...
Stop. Whoa. Phil, this handsome, fit fellow was 20... Were you really 20 stone?
I did. My running journey actually started with me bending over and splitting a pair of 40-inch waist trousers.
I really feel like I now need to start running. I'm very... I'm worried this is the only way forward.
Yeah, but I go back, definitely, Russ. I go back to the old saying, which I understand that the two of us are of a certain vintage, but Rome wasn't built in a day. And you've got to be patient with the tools that you do, that you use, to understand that we're not talking about miracle cures. Just like, one apple is not going to suddenly take me from 20 stone to 11 stone. That came with hard work and disciplines. It's about the things that we repeat regularly. And yeah, absolutely right. Don't think that by going out once for a 5K run, or by reading one book, or by cooking dinner once, we're suddenly going to change our lives and free ourselves from everything going on around us. the toolkit and my mind plan is about things that we can do every day. And actually, you know, I always use that phrase, take a minute, because sometimes, often it's going to take a little bit longer than that. But think about it initially in really simple terms. What can I do, even if it's just for a minute every day, that's going to boost my mindset and well-being?
That's so
And for
true.
different, for each of
true.
your listeners, that might be something different.
For me, I'll just throw my hat in the ring. It's humor. I'll go and find something which really cracks me up, and you know, I just discover new comedian, mostly American. I'm not mad about British humor anymore, but mostly American stuff, and it really cracks me up. And you know, I find myself just laughing out loud, which is great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Laughter feeds the soul. Laughter's always a wonderful thing.
Oh, what a beautiful phrase.
I'm trying to think what I would do. I reckon that for me, it's got to be, I mean, I do love walking. I don't do that anywhere near enough. And I remember all the way through the first lockdown, when you may recall, we were only sort of allowed 1 hour's exercise a day. And I used to take that hour to the full, just walking around where I was staying, going anywhere where there was loads of greenery. That's all I really sort of used around it.
Absolutely.
That helps.
So important. Well, I know you're a very busy fellow with back-to-back stuff. Bless you. You are just terrific. And boy, a mind lucky to have you. Seriously. You are so... I'm not blowing smoke up your posterior, but you are so impressive and articulate. And, you know, you just give out waves of empathy. We don't always see that.
I've been very lucky to have them. You know, they gave me hope and dignity at a time when my life was crushed. They gave me that, and they were able to help me to get a diagnosis, and that changed my life, because I knew then that I wasn't dealing with hating myself as I'd begun to do, but I was dealing with an illness which I could overcome. And you know, over the years, I went to volunteer for and be an ambassador for mine, because I wanted to help to change other lives. But actually, in doing so, the life that was transformed the most was my own, because it's given me such a purpose and joy to be able to help others on their behalf.
Do you know what? If I had to say, I was forced and say, take one interview which completely encapsulate everything that men's radio is about, this is it. It would be you.
Thank you.
Really,
thank you so much.
I couldn't honestly say anything higher than that. I think you're an extraordinary fellow. Please come back.
It's been a privilege to join you. I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to.
Great.
And congratulations for obtaining that accolade for Since Friday's guest. So anyway,
thank you.
Ignore him. He's an arse, but he's the cheapest in his price range.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for discussing something that needs to be discussed.
Well, please tell all the gang at Mind all about us. Please, I'd be really grateful. I don't normally ask for favors, but we're doing our best here. We would appreciate every bit of support and communication. It would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Rowan.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Well,
what a lovely fellow.
Crumbs. Well, I feel inadequate now. Should we just call it now?
Well, let's not kid ourselves, Phil.
What? I was inadequate before.
You are inadequate. Glassy Amanda, I love walking. Oh, hang on, I'll put the things up now. Glassy Amanda, whose real name is Amanda Glass, which I didn't realize until the other week. I love walking as well, Phil. Well, walking's great, isn't it? It's great.
But what I like about walking is it's not necessarily something that is going to get you all hot and bothered and worked up or anything like that. It's not. I don't really see it as a lot of exercise. I see it as just pure escapism. And I know that you were using the analogy before, running away from problems, and you could potentially say this is walking away from problems, but it's really not. It's about just slowing the pace of life down, because when you're in front of your computer all day or wherever you are,
I'm hating it more and more. I've got to be honest with you. I'm really railing against it.
Your pace is dictated by the technology in front of you, whereas if you get up and walk out, what you're doing is you're resetting that pace, and that's what I like.
Isn't this cool? Julie Voice. Isn't that a fantastic name? Julie Voice. Hi from sunny Houston. She's probably from Croydon. She's probably visiting. Julie, what the hell's the time in Houston, Texas? Fabulous. Always wanted to go there.
About 5 or 6 hours behind us, no?
At least, yeah, could be. Anyway, I will be going to. It would appear that I will be going to Texas. Over the next few years, several times for reasons which I won't go into now. Julie, thank you. I don't know how the hell you found us, but bless you. You spread the word about MRS now. Got lots of heavyweight stuff coming in. I want to try and deal with it, young Philip. I never stop worrying, says Chrissy Richards out in Spain. All I get from my daughter is I'm fine. And she's not. In a bad place, suffered a lot of abuse since June. Nothing seems to change. Last night I phoned her and some man answered. Well, I don't want to get into that because that's none of our business and that's your daughter's business. But it is very difficult. A more general extrapolation from that is you ask someone you know isn't fine. They go, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. It doesn't help, does it? It's just a sound. They might as well say xylophone zebra. They could say anything. Like saying I'm fine when you're not fine just isn't helpful. And the other thing, and where do you stand on this, Phil? If you feel that you can't say to somebody, actually, I'm struggling today, they're not your friend. They're really not your friend. You're wasting your time with that person. That's my view.
Well, I would suggest probably more appropriately is I'd say that the mark of a true friend is someone who you could say that to. Just because you can't say it to somebody, it doesn't mean they're not a friend, if you see what I mean. I would just suggest someone who's
you have to take it on levels. You can say, this is a real friend, and I could phone up at any time and say, hey, I got a real problem. And if you can find a handful of those, you're a lucky person and blessed, and I am blessed. And there's other people that you like, you enjoy their company, it's amusing, but you would never dream of doing that. But you know that. You accept them for what and who they are because they're funny or amusing or whatever it might, or nice to be with, but you wouldn't be able to have that sort of conversation. I get that. Look at this from Chrissy. Now I think she's lost her phone or stolen it, so yet again, no contact. I've cried all night. It's horrible. I hate doing it. I hate reading this. I hate it. It's, you feel so useless. You don't know what to do.
And Chris, the fact that you've actually sort of said that as well, we've left out the most important line, which I think should be said. Chrissy says, I need help. And she doesn't mean me, doesn't she? Means her. She's saying she needs help. And I would suggest, not obviously sort of being any stretch of the imagination an expert in this particular problem, this issue that you're facing, the first thing I'd be tempted to do is to call, I would say, Samaritans and ask them. They are trained for things like this. People have a very strange view about Samaritans. They think
they do.
They do. Got to be sort of so rock bottom before you even think of contacting them. But actually, they're very good at helping direct people. So even if the advisor, the other end of the phone, is not the answer to the problem, they might very well be able to advise you on how best to behave and how best to help your daughter. And surely that's got to be worth a try.
It is. We've said it before, and we will continue to say, you do not have to be standing on the ledge on the top of a high rise before you think it's time to phone the Samaritans. That is an old trope that is incorrect.
And if you did
you don't have to be suicidal. You don't have to be on the edge of doing something horrible to yourself.
Might I suggest, if you are listening to this, you can't see, the number is on screen at the moment, but please note that it's very simple. The number is simply 116 123. That's the telephone number for Samaritans, 116 123. If I'm not mistaken, you can also text that number as well. And you can also email joe@samaritans.org.uk.
Yeah, we'll leave the number up for a little bit. But as Phil says, because be honest, I keep forgetting there's about like 45,000 people listening on Deluxe Radio. So hi to everybody. You can always watch us, by the way, as well as listen to us if you so choose. But the number is 116.
I must correct it. Sorry, it's joe@samaritans.org. I do apologise, not .uk. joe@samaritans.org. I'm very sorry.
Okay. And it's 116123. Simple number. Shove it in your phone. 116123. And as I said, you don't have to be desperate. You can just be troubled, anxious. Phone them up. They're all properly trained. Michael Verby in the south of Spain have joined a veterans football. But Michael, you're only 13. How's this possible? Have joined a veterans football team of mainly expats here in Spain. Amazing to find how many have had struggles, and the camaraderie is therapeutic for all of us. I so get that. That's
Cool.
fantastic.
Just imagine the frustration that's being taken out on that football.
Better the football than, someone you love, isn't it? It's true. That's why I love drumming. Because it's physical. It's complex because you're trying to do a lot of things simultaneously, and it's discipline, but it can also be wonderfully releasing and aggressive, and that's why I love drumming.
Thank you for saying simultaneously and not simultaneously. I want to slap people.
Why do people say simultaneously? It's bullshit.
I don't know.
It's called simultaneously. Glassy Amanda says Samaritans are just wonderful and totally agree with Phil and Russ's views. Wowza, blimey.
There we go.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Now we'll leave the number up. And if you are listening and you're not watching us, Samaritans is 116123.
Chrissy says, I think that is good, Phil. Someone to talk who doesn't know me. I'm not suicidal. Love you both. Well, Chrissy, we're very fond of you as well, so thank you.
Well, we are. We are. We would be failing in our mission if we couldn't reach out to the people who are taking the time and trouble to support us, follow us, engage with us, chat with us. That's what would be rubbish. It would be a total hypocrisy and be no good whatsoever. It is better sometimes to just have a completely objective person who doesn't know you and can just look at it without knowing the personality. Does that make sense? I think it does. Michael, can I just tell you one thing? That's never going to happen. Better read it because for our listeners, Michael Verby in the south of Spain says, you and Phil would be welcome to come over as guest players. Mate,
never. Thank you.
No, but bless you. That would be hilarious. The thought of Phil Dave,
the beautiful game, but thank you for saying.
The thought of Phil Dave playing football has just
no way.
That's the thought for the day that will amuse me now for absolute hours.
I utterly promise you, no one, absolutely nobody in their right mind wants to see that. But thank you.
Oh, no. You're completely wrong. We all want to see it. It would just be hilarious. Anybody coming you? I don't think so. Thank you very much. No.
I'm
Phil,
sure this.
Phil, you're wearing a cravat underneath your football shirt. Well,
I'm sure this comes as a massive shock. But when I was forced to play, one of the schools I went to used to force us to play 3 sports. And as a result of it, I've grown up really disliking intensely all 3 of those sports. And they were football, rugby, and cricket. Those were the 3 we were forced into playing. Like it or lump it, come rain or shine. Obviously, cricket more often than not was done in the sun because it was the summer sport. But football and rugby, just hate it. Anyway,
because it's killing me. What position in rugby? Because I had to play it. I was at boarding school. I had no options. Football was not allowed. It was rugby only. What position?
Well, I was usually the ball. Anyway, but I'd say that
the usual is the post.
Yes.
He's so slim. He could put a little flag on the top of his head. He could be a corner post.
Anyway, the point is that when I was forced to play those, whatever the weather, I was always the one who used to step back from the ball to make sure I didn't get my
obviously.
I wanted to make sure I didn't get my kit dirty.
Precisely. You didn't want to do that. What the hell wants to play them? I'm not a team player in that
I
regard.
blame my mother. She always used to say, "Don't come back with mud on you." It's not my fault.
I'm afraid Phil would have to wear long johns if he played, says Chrissy Richards. Well, that's very, very true, and John wants them back. Now, something I do want to touch on. Something I'd like to touch on. I'm just changing the mood. Should we leave the Samaritans thing? I think everybody's seen it now, Philip. 116123. Oh, your mother's kicked off. Lies, Phil. That's going up. Lies, Phil, says Linda Dave. She would know. Now, something that occurred to me. I wrote a piece on Facebook last night. As Phil knows, I got hacked. My emails got hacked. There's a point to this. This isn't about poor me, because that's not what it's about. My emails got hacked about 2 weeks ago. It was a very sophisticated hack. I thought I must have done something. It was nothing, for once, absolutely nothing to do with me. I'd been hacked. They'd gone in. They'd changed all the settings. They'd really gone to town. And it took eventually 3 tech companies almost 2 weeks. And Phil was brilliant. He did absolutely his best, but it was a pig of a problem. And I had to get tech specialists in, and it was resolved late yesterday after 2 weeks. But what I wrote on Facebook and what I noticed, what I really wanted to discuss in the last part of the show, is I was astonished. Now, first of all, I was angry because these sods do it simply because they can. There's, basically that's it, to cause havoc. Okay. So I was very angry, and I think that's a legitimate anger. It's not a misplaced anger. I'm angry at these jerks doing it. But I was then very angry, and I haven't said this to Phil, so he's hearing it for the first time. I was very angry with myself. And the reason I was angry with myself is I couldn't believe how stressed I felt. And then I gave myself a good talking to and said, sod it. They're emails. If they're desperate to get hold of me, they can phone me. If it's not that important, they won't phone me. And if they don't have my phone number, it definitely can't be that important because I don't really know them. But I felt a whole range of emotions, enormous stress, a concern that people would think I was being rude and ignorant if I didn't reply to them or I was deliberately ignoring them, which I never, ever do. If I don't reply to someone, because it slipped through the net. And all of these things I had to give. And I thought, what is this? Why are we so attached to this sodding technology? It was really affecting me badly. And I got very annoyed with myself that it was, because it's just an email.
It's true, but the problem is, though, that we live in a world that we are obsessed with technology. And that was actually one of the things that I suppose I learned when not necessarily going away this time, but when I've been away in the past, what I've done is I've gone incommunicado. I would just make sure I wasn't available to reach whatever the reason. And that might be foolish because there may be a genuine emergency that someone needs to get me on. And it was particularly hard actually this time because of being in the UK. I didn't have to worry about the phone bill because obviously it was all still part and parcel of the same phone company and network and everything like that. At least when you're abroad, you worry about data charges and roaming charges and things like that. But I really made a proper effort to ignore everything that came through. And it was tricky actually, because apart from there were obviously times when I was maybe wandering around a bit aimlessly, not necessarily doing much. And I thought to myself, well, maybe I'll just check a couple of emails. And all I would do when I looked at them, because I was reminded of what work lay ahead, is I would either shove them into a folder to be dealt with when I get back.
Well, that's sophisticated.
Or I'd mark them as read. So in other words, they were just ignored. And actually 2 weeks of doing that, or 10 days, I should say, of doing that, felt pretty good.
Did it screw up your day, though? You see, the thing is, it's like opening Pandora's box. If you're having a nice time, you're saying, I'm on holiday. This is me time. And I'm reading between the lines with you. And then you think, all right, I've got a few moments between whatever I've got planned for today, which might be very loose and free, which is great. I'll look at my emails. And the moment you do, your day's screwed, I think, because you get sucked into this vortex of other people's aggravation.
Yeah, it's true. You do. Unfortunately, you do. This is the problem, though, and this is where you were saying before about instant gratification, where this is just such a dangerous place to be. I don't ever think I realized how good we had it in years gone by when you had to send something off in the post and wait several days.
Yeah.
Because actually it gave you breathing space. And I never realized that until we lost that.
I did, because I was writing loads and loads of scripts. I was a copywriter and a script writer and a speech writer. That's what I did for many, many, many years. And I absolutely adored it. I still do. But back then I had an electric typewriter, because we didn't have word processors, with carbon paper and Tipex. I would write the script. I would then put it in an envelope and mail it to the client. It had to reach them. They had to read it. They had to make manual adjustments and notes. They would post it back to me. It gave you breathing space. The first change in that was the fax machine, where you fax it over. Ooh. So you'd fax over the advert, whatever you were doing. You say it's a corporate video script, you would fax it over. And that breathing time got less and less and less. And now, of course, we have emails, and people expect everything to be done like that. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes you have to actually do that old-fashioned thing of thinking it through.
And it's the same way as well when we order something now. There's this nonsense with next day delivery. Why do we need something? I mean, okay, sometimes some people need stuff urgently. I get that. But for goodness sake, if it's something that is just frivolous, it's something that maybe isn't that important, but we still want it. Doesn't stop us wanting it the next day. Some cases people want it the same day, and that blows my mind, seriously.
Ramsey's saying this. I love a gadget. Well, I do. I like him, but I try not to let them rule me. And I have numerous computers. Get you, Mr. Flashboy. It is something we have become addicted to, sadly, and social media plays on our hunger for information. It's something we should talk about a lot more with regard to mental health. Ramsey, you're preaching to the choir here, fella. One of my girlfriends lived in the Middle East, and we courted via snail mail at a week each way on average. If I told my kids, they'd laugh at me. Wow. And Ramsey finally says, in answer to your point, Phil on Amazon, I can get same-day delivery. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
How about that?
They're in my point.
But if they can offer it, it's not a terrible thing. I don't mind waiting. I mean, it's a little bit of, what is it, Phil? It's a little bit of forethought. I'm going to run out of X, Y, and Z. Okay, so before I run out of it, I'll reorder it. So I'm not in a panic for it. That's fine. It's just a little bit of forethought. It's called a little bit of planning. And Michael comes up with a great point from southern Spain. And Michael, I have a lot of sympathy for this. Do you want to read it out, Phil?
Amazing how many people said it was a blessed release when Facebook went down the other day. Couldn't agree more.
Totally.
Sorry.
And people went into a panic. I couldn't give a monkey. The only thing was, because I've been hacked, when I couldn't use WhatsApp, which is I communicate with a lot of people privately on WhatsApp. It's quick and it's clear. And when that went, and I thought, oh God, they've hacked into that. So my heart sank. So I was actually, this sounds awful, I apologize. I was actually thrilled and relieved when I realized it was a global outage and not just some swine of a hacker picking on me. So it was fine. I didn't miss Facebook at all. I thought, okay, so what? Don't care. I mean, genuinely didn't even bother me. But it is addictive. Veronica Curran up in Edinburgh. Technology is a useful resource, but it is intrusive, demanding, and takes proper control out of our hands. I prefer a human being to respond. Veronica, with you this is the other thing I wrote in Facebook. just as a piece, but I just want to put my thoughts down on paper, so to speak. I don't know how you feel about this, Phil. No one talks to anybody anymore. You don't get a phone. You don't get a phone. I phoned a friend who's been a friend of mine for 35 years, and I'm going to phone her up. And I phoned up, and they said, "Well, anyway, RK," she was called me RK. RK, well, so why did you call? I said, "I don't have a reason for calling. I'm calling to say hello." Oh, like this was like, and this is like one of the smartest people I know. Brilliant author. And I thought, isn't that telling? No, she wasn't being rude. She was just so unused to, and I'm completely unused. No one, and I mean no one, phones, apart from my other half and my daughter, ever phones for a chat. Ever. Never.
But I got a theory behind that as well. It's because we have now sort of crafted a world for ourselves where you sort of don't need to phone anymore, because we think we get away with just dropping a WhatsApp message or just sending a text message, because you're still in contact with that person. And therefore, it doesn't matter. You don't have to actually phone them as well. That would just be silly. But also, with how fast-paced life is, we sort of don't really have time for it either. So I think it's sort of multi-complex, it's multifaceted, the problems as to why we don't necessarily phone people in the way we used to anymore.
But I tell you what I think it does. It is dehumanizing us. That is the real crux of all of this. And I know, and you'd be right to say, but Russ, you use Twitter. I do, to try and promote, either to do a gag or to promote men's radio and women's radio. Yes. I use Facebook. Yes. Either to promote my books or have a bit of humor, or to promote men's radio and women's radio. I understand that. So you could say you're a rank hypocrite. Can't argue with you. Okay. But all of this is dehumanizing us. We're just becoming an extension of the machines. I think the balance has gone completely wrong. And it's telling that the twins, as you know, we've got twin boys, don't touch social media. Don't go near it. Won't have anything, never have, and they never will. They don't want anything to do with it.
Purely for work purposes, I've always said it, but I wished I could say the same.
Yeah. Well,
I can't. Fortunately, for work, I have to use it. Yeah. But if I didn't have to, I wouldn't be interested.
Chrissy says, I go onto Facebook to watch your show. Used to, now only go on to YouTube to watch you. Doesn't clock up my phone. Our choir practice yesterday cheers me up totally. And she's saying phone more than social media. Good. And then Michael in southern Spain. So we've got a little Spanish contingent coming in. The other thing is how many Bruegger's arguments, rows, feuds have started because people have misunderstood the intonation of a message. Oh, Michael, 100%, man. 100%. You can't get the little tone of sarcasm, or you being silly, or you being flippant. Wow, people, you got to be careful with that. So easy.
It's actually caused me arguments before with friends who I would like to think know me better, and they read a message, take it out of context, and what's worse is that they sort of insist on carrying on with the conversation. There was one particular incident which I won't sort of go into too much into now, not least of all because we've only got about a minute left, but primarily because I don't really want to sort of give too much away. But someone who's a very good friend of mine, who I said, look, there's a bit of a problem, need to tell you about. When can you speak? Can't talk at the moment, text me. Really don't want to text. Please tell me when you're around. No, I'm really intrigued now. I'm worried. What's wrong? No, I can't. I don't really want to have this conversation by text message. Please tell me when you're around. I'm actually really panicking. And I'm not being funny. This person is not supposed to panic because it's not good for them. Anyway, I did text. Sure enough, taken out of context, and then descended into a text row. So anyway, that's
there are certain things, and people just have to know this. You can't put into text. It's like you've got to be grown up and just have a conversation.
It's a nice
ridiculous.
thought.
Why can't we do it? It's been a fascinating show. Absolutely loved our guest.
Thank you, sir.
He was terrific. What a wonderful man. What a wonderful man. Nice that you've got your tech problems sorted. I'm thrilled I got my tech problems sorted. Yay! The god of tech is smiling for 5 minutes. We will be back on Friday, God willing.
At 11.
See music.
Bye.
Fantastic.